What is going on today, guys? Fat, disgusting blob of software here. And today we're going to be talking about software cracking. Stop. Don't call the police. I am not endorsing it or telling you how to do it. Pay for the things you use. No, seriously, do pay for them. Okay, is this a sufficient disclaimer, YouTube? But if this video does get taken down for some reason or I get striked, I will upload this to my second channel because we're going to be talking about some controversial topics today. And not just because it straddles the line of YouTube's TOS, but also because this will mess up your chances of working with quite a few companies by talking about this. Today, I'll be telling you guys about an absolutely riveting tale. It features interesting topics such as software crackers doing good, software that is way too big for what it is, a security breach in the software, as well as a developer threatening to ban people. But most of all, it's a bunch of hogwash and poppycock. In other words, it's perfect for this channel. Acustica Audio is a plugin company, but not just any plugin company. They're the plugin company with arguably the worst user interfaces. At least if you aren't a big fan of software looking like hardware that you've never seen before. But they also give you the DNA of the most iconic studio machines ever manufactured. DNA, you say.
There's DNA in this.
So they generally make plugins with that analog sound, the analog warmth, if you will. I'm not super familiar with all their plugins personally, but I have used Nebula 3 in the past, maybe 10-ish years ago, which would use a special convolution technique to replicate hardware via software so you could capture the sound of any hardware and then replicate it on any audio. You know, the sound of an analog compressor and then apply it to whatever audio you would like, etc. I used to think it worked pretty decently, but I did find it took up a lot of CPU as well as space on my computer, and I always wondered why that was. So recently, R2R has come out and exposed the shit out of Acustica. R2R is a group that cracks software and eliminates the protection the software has that would force people to pay for it. I'm sure most of you are familiar with them. It's okay, this is a safe space, I think. Say whatever you want about the morality of cracking software. I'm not here to argue for or against it today. From what I could tell, Acustica Audio software has not had a public crack of it posted by R2R since 2014. It turns out there is something worse than Acustica Audio's graphic user interfaces. The bloat. The amount of extra space that they make you take up when installing their software that doesn't need to be there. Now, this may not sound important, but what if I told you that just one of their EQ plugins takes an extra 10 gigs just for the protection against piracy? 10 fucking gigs. Now imagine if you have 10 of their plugins. This could be taking up 100 gigs on your hard drive instead of 10 gigs. This is also known as DRM, and that's basically just piracy protection. Now obviously a lot of software has this, but it never takes up anywhere near this much space. So let's take a look at where this was discovered, basically in R2R's info text, because there's actually more to it than that. They did more than just crack the software. They rebuilt the libraries without the anti-piracy protection in it. They removed the encryption and compression, and it is smaller than the legit software libraries. And because of this, the library load times are faster than the legit version. Now, this is not the first time this has happened with music software, but it is probably the first time it has to this extent. But yeah, you heard that right. It works better and faster than the paid version. So what are you paying for exactly? I don't know. Now, obviously, this is absolutely unacceptable for companies to make their software worse for the people paying for it. And they're doing this just to keep people from pirating it, but it's not even actually keeping people from pirating it. They stated that their releases are up to 90% smaller than the legitimate versions. And it's due to the way that Acustica Audio built it. So they stated that the protection in their software is not even strong. They explain a little bit about how it is done, but obviously I'm gonna leave it out of this video. See, YouTube, we no do bad, we good boys. So apparently they hadn't released any cracks since 2014 because they didn't want to expose their methods until they had the time to do all of the softwares, because developers often check how these cracks are done and then go and patch all their software, and basically they were just too lazy to do all of them according to them. Then they actually just supplied a message directly to the developer here. Shit, they're really on demon time. It only took them a few hours to get the one product working and a week to figure out the library rebuilding. They question why they believe in this super bloated protection system they have. The customers aren't blind. Think about how this makes them feel. Apparently Acustica was saying that their versions are better because you can get updates. Updates for what though? Unless you're on a Mac, I don't think you need updates constantly, unless you're actually adding content and features. Don't threaten your customers. They said they should do the right thing and remove this shitty piracy protection that ruins the experience for paying customers. So you may be wondering there, threatening? He's threatening them? What do you mean? What are you talking about? A man named John Carlo is the CEO of Acustica Audio, and let's just say he is not happy about this. He wrote a long response on the Acustica Facebook group. And Acustica it is. He stated that cracks for products are released slowly, and this delay isn't good for a professional setting. Right, that couldn't be why so many people use older versions of DAWs or plugins. They said they spent their time solving users' problems and they have about an update a day. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what all of these updates consist of, but the software being 10 times bigger than it should be seems like one of the biggest possible user issues. It is worth mentioning that R2R did not just release one of their plugins, they cracked all of them and have been releasing them daily. R2R would also slide in messages to these releases, causing a back and forth between them and Acustica Audio. And at the time of recording, it is still going on. They said their products will be dramatically improved and that they have no intention of changing the way it is packaged or protected, meaning they don't give a fuck about their customers. Keep this one bookmarked for later on, alright? He goes on to say the CPU usage doesn't change with the extra space it takes and that it is not as stable in an unprotected form. Slightly sexual wording aside there, what they're saying does not make any sense. It is their software, they have the greatest control over what happens to it and how optimized it could be. They start stating that it is more efficient somehow, which personally doesn't make sense to me, but this is where it goes completely nuclear. They stated that as soon as your Acustica account is linked to a compromised version, it will be deactivated and you will no longer be able to use their software ever again. Yeah, you heard that correctly. If you use a pirated copy, even if you've bought the software, they will ban you from using their software, all of them, forever. In another post, they state that this disk problem wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for piracy. Oh, so you're just gonna blame the pirates now, huh? Victim blaming the pirates. I thought you were doing this because it was more efficient. Piracy is going to exist no matter what, so this is adding nothing to that conversation. This bloated DRM system is clearly not stopping people from pirating your software either. We provide a product designed in a certain way, bloated, packaged in a certain way, bloated. Then they go on to say if this doesn't work for you, switch developers, whatever. Now obviously threatening paying customers and saying you will ban them if they have ever used cracked software is insane. Definitely not the right response here. If they bend to R2R's will, then they look weak because they are basically doing what the crackers are saying they should do. This sounds really weird out of context. I'm not talking about white people, okay? And if they don't do it, then they're basically treating their customers poorly because they're getting a worse version of the software. But in my opinion, I guess the best way to go about this is just remove the bloat. It's not stopping people from pirating it. So it kind of does seem like the company is lying here. And we got another message from John Carlo here where he addresses things he's already addressed. Okay, he needs to just shut up at this point. Somebody, stop him. Stop him. Now, they are saying that they have been reducing the size of their products in this form of protection over the past year. Wow, that was a fast year, only about 3 days. Then they go on to say this process began in recent months. He also saying he strongly advocated for this change. He specifically listed that their versions will be smaller. Now, if this is sounding conflicting and hypocritical to you, that's because it is. He then says that lately they have been focused less on copy protection and more on improving their products. And then, of course, he doubles down on banning people for using pirated copies for some reason, which don't get me wrong, that is sort of in your free will as a company to do, but it may actually be illegal. And at the very least, it is in a legal gray area. Setting that aside though, that is just a really shitty thing to do as a company. Then he says they don't do this out of spite, which it is definitely being done out of spite. He says it is being done to make sure they get paid, but are they not banning paying customers for ever having used a software crack? And weirdly, I predict they would actually lose much more customers by doing this than by doing nothing at all. By banning people from your system completely, you are losing out on them being your customer in their future. John Carlo said he coincidentally used to pirate software 16 years ago. So it's fine if he reforms from doing it, but it's not okay if you reform from doing it. Believe it or not all people who pirate software plan to use pirated software forever. I mean, John Carlo is literally an example of that. And then there's kind of just a back and forth between R2R and them through different releases of the plugins. R2R says this has been something they have done since 2014, and they have put more effort into protection since then rather than hearing out customer feedback. They said no one else puts such effort into protection, and they know because they've cracked thousands of softwares. Now, obviously, we are trusting R2R's word a lot here, but I personally believe them. And I do have a friend of a friend who has tested their version of the software, and it does seem to be running better. Then R2R dropped another bomb. They stated that there are serious security vulnerabilities in their protection software, allowing people to put malicious code into it. Don't do that, by the way. Cherry Audio had a similar issue in the past, and they fixed it after R2R pointed it out. Now, essentially, Acustica has to patch all of their plugins, and all of the library developers for it also have to patch their libraries. It's a clusterfuck. And of course, we have another Acustica response here. I know, this is ridiculous. Just fix the fucking software. Honestly, this is just becoming an endless feedback loop at this point, so I'm gonna start to just skip to what I believe to be the important parts or interesting parts. He stated that the protection is what has helped them succeed as a company, which there is no way of proving true or false, so we'll just give him that one. Well, there's one guy on the forum who said he has been banned. They've basically shooed away what they said about the security exploits as well as banning people. They did give them some good advice though, only encrypt important files. There was also a clip of one of their partners named Luca using a plugin cracked by R2R. He doesn't work for the company though, but he has worked with the company, if that makes sense. I personally don't see this as much of an own though. It'd be much more damning if he was the co-founder or much more related to the company. I am not posting that clip though because it keeps getting taken down. There's also a post of Giancarlo saying that R2R's releases do run better after saying they don't. God, I'm really bored of this at this point. I just got some breaking news while editing this video. Giancarlo seems to have backed down on banning paying customers. This is just a Facebook comment though, so make of that whatever you will. In fact, make of this entire story whatever you will. It seems like Acustica Audio might have finally given in from all of the negative feedback. If you've learned anything today, hopefully it's how not to run a business. If you press the like button on this video, I will not ban you from my YouTube channel. I'll be checking. I'll see you guys next time.
Bang Incorporated.